Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Wish you all a very blessed start of Ramadan. My name is Muhammad Abdullah. I'm a member of an incredible team that has been operating Islamic City since 1995. Thank you for joining us for the second day of Quranic recitations with Dr. Aslam Abdullah. Those who are with us yesterday, I apologize. I did not introduce Dr. Aslam Abdullah properly, but today I do want to introduce him. A lot of you probably already know him, but for those who don't, Dr. Aslam Abdullah received a doctorate in communications from University of London. He's a resident scholar of Islamic City, editor-in-chief of Muslim Media Network that publishes Muslim Observer. He has served as director of the Islamic Society of Nevada and Masjid Ibrahim in Las Vegas. Most of all, he has a long list of social activism that I won't have time to get into today. But he's been a social activist all of his life. We are honored to have him with us, where he can share his wisdom and his knowledge with us. Just some quick housekeeping rules. I wanted to kind of just share with you. So if you're on this page where you're watching this daily reflection, there's a registration. Please do fill out the registration. This is how we keep in touch with you so that we can notify you of events coming up. If you just click on the questions, it'll take you to the bottom of the screen where in the comment section you can post your questions. We have one question from yesterday that was posted today. We'll try and get to that. The second thing is we also have a list of the complete juz index. So if you just click on that juz index, it'll take you to the Quranic search where all of the verses are there. And this will give me an opportunity to actually share with you our Quranic tool that we have. So here you can see the entire juz. You can play the entire juz as is. You can go to the settings. You can select different translators. So we have Laila Bakhtiar, literal word, Muhammad Pictol, Muhammad Asad, and so on. You can select show Arabic, show transliterations, show the topics being discussed, show audio links. And then if you want to memorize any of this, you can select 3 times, 5 times, or 10 times. It will repeat that ayah for you for memorization. And you can select your qari that you want to listen to. We have a selection of 5 different qaris. You just say save, and it will save that for you. And this is how you can go in and read that juz. If you want to go and look at the commentary for a particular verse, we have Abdullah Yusuf Ali, Muhammad Asad, and I think this is Umar Khattab that we have, Mustafa Khattab's commentary that we have. So you can go and listen, read the commentary for each ayah also. This will give you a very quick way of trying to understand the Quran, get into the meanings of the Quran, get a commentary of the Quran, memorize the Quran. This is a tool that we have recently developed. It was just launched this year. I hope you will take advantage of this. We do have a Islamic City app also. So you can, on the main page itself, you can go and download the app. It's for the iOS only, so for Apple devices. Very soon we'll be launching that for the Android version also. That's a very quick introduction to some of the resources that we have. Hope you'll take advantage of this. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Aslam Abdullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, and thank you very much for hosting this event for people who have been locked down in their homes, unable to come to the masajid, and then developing this link with each other through the medium of the Quran and through the medium of the technology. Today, we will reflect on the second part of the Quran, second juz of the Quran, which begins, سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاءُ. It has 91 ayahs, beginning from 142nd ayah of Surah Baqarah and ending at 253rd ayah of Surah Baqarah. These 91 verses of the Quran focus at least on 7 major issues. They involve halal and haram. They involve the issue pertaining to the will. They deal with issues of divorce. They deal with issues of the transgressions of the people in the past as far as the divine guidance is concerned. They talk about the real intention and the real goal and objectives of the Muslim community. They talk about the developing relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they also talk about overcoming the difficulties and facing the challenges in one's life. It would be difficult to focus on all those 7 aspects and much more, but I would focus on a few, mainly 3 or 4 issues that are highlighted in this surah and that basically form the crux of the argument, because everything in this juz revolves around those ideas. We should also begin with the initial verses of the juz, which says سَيَقُولُ السُّفَهَاءُ مِنَ النَّاسِ مَا وَلَّاهُمْ عَنْ قِبْلَتِهِمْ الَّتِي كَانُوا عَلَيْهَا قُلْ لِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقُ وَالْمَغْرِبُ. It is referring to an event that is considered a historic event in the Muslim history, when the Prophet ﷺ's companions were praying towards Jerusalem, and on that, when this ayah came, or an ayah came that asked them to turn their faces from Jerusalem to Kaaba. And then when they turned their faces toward the Kaaba, the issue was that you are now changing your directions, and you are now basically going away from the message that was initially and originally given by Prophet Ibrahim alayhi and that was consolidated by his progeny in Jerusalem. This particular ayah is very significant because it gives a different kind of understanding of the divine guidance and the divine message that was prevalent at that particular time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through this particular verse, is reminding people and is telling people that the leadership of the people would now be transferred to those people who believe in the divine guidance as being revealed upon the last prophet. It would no longer be based on ethnicity. It would no longer be based on geography. It would no longer be based on the progeny. And this was one of the most significant events, because until the advent of the Prophet ﷺ, the leadership for the last 2,000 years, at least in the Middle East, was confined to the progeny of Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam or Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And it is in this particular context that the Quran is telling us that now the leadership is open for those who believe in the divine guidance, not on the basis of their blood relationship, but on the basis of their ideological clarity and ideological understanding. And it is in this particular context, the Quran, for the first time, and perhaps the only place in the entire scripture, defines the articles of faith. And it is in this when the Quran says, لَيْسَ الْبِرَّ أَن تُوَلُّوا وُجُوهَكُمْ قِبَلَ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ. 5 articles of faith at one place. There are other places where the Quran talks about 3 articles, 4 articles, but when the Quran is talking about the complete Iman, it is talking about these 5 that has been defined in this particular surah and in this particular verse, that the piety and the virtuousness is not that you turn your faces towards east or west. The piety is that you have clarity of understanding about oneness of God. You have clarity of understanding about the day of judgment. You believe in the presence of the malaika, the hidden forces of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You believe in the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was given in the form of scriptures, and you believe in the prophets who brought these things. It is in this particular context that the Quran is talking about. Now let's come to 4 or 5 issues that I want to touch upon. The first is the objectives of the Muslim community. And in this particular respect, the Quran is telling us, وَلِكُلِّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Every other community has its own direction, has its own objectives, has its own goals. Those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message as being given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam must ensure that they outrace and outpace and outdo others in things that are good. That is their direction. That they involve in actions that would bring goodness to the people. It is not confined only to prayers. It is not only confined to ibadat. It is about every aspect and everything in this life. That in every aspect of life, whether it relates with our physical world, it relates with our social world, it relates with our spiritual world, the responsibility of the believers is to give an example of goodness to others and to ensure that the good prevails. So if we find hunger, then it becomes the responsibility of the believers to come up with the strategies to eradicate that hunger. If they find illiteracy, then it becomes their responsibility to ensure that that illiteracy is eradicated. So good in every aspect. If they find that there are issues pertaining to the health of the issues, then they come up with their research and their energies to come up with the strategies and come up with ideas that would improve people in their health, in their living conditions, in their relationship with each other. If they find that the people are being exploited on the basis of anything, then they make efforts to help people. And this is something that has to be done individually as well as collectively. Where they are capable of influencing as an individual, they should do that. Where they are capable of coming together and then changing the conditions, then they should do it. And that is one of the important things that the Quran is telling us. وَلِكُلِّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. The second issue that the Quran is mentioning, and this is mentioned, I think, in Surah Baqarah 148, the second thing that the Quran is mentioning is وَاسْتَعِينُوا بِالصَّبْرِ وَالصَّلَاةِ. And then the Quran also tells us that وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُم مُّصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Now, usually, when someone from our own community and our own relatives passes away, we read the verse, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. But the meaning of this particular verse is far greater and far bigger than what we usually use it for. It says us that whatever is happening in this world has some reasons for its happening. There are some causes for that. And those causes are the outcome of the physical laws or the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. And since people created imbalance in those laws, those kind of things are happening. So if you want to fix those things, and if you want to change the conditions, then you will have to basically go back to the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to fix it. So similarly, if a machine is broken, then certainly we go to the manual to see how we can fix that machine. And we go to the root cause and find out that because of the wear and tear, because of abuse, or because of whatever reasons that machine got stuck, got broken, now we'll have to fix it, and we do it. So inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. God created the universe in a perfect balance. Problems occurred as a result of imbalance that we created as a result of our actions, as a result of our own greed, as a result of our own ideas, and then it led to the breaking of the system, and now we have to go back to fix it. And it, in that particular respect, in that effort to fix things, we will face issues and problems. Now, usually we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is putting us to test and trial. We must be very clear that Allah knows our capacity more than ourselves. He is not doing it so that he could know whether we are capable of doing that or not. What he's trying to tell us that you yourself do not know your own capacity and your own potential. And unless you go through this rigorous training that you would have in this life, you would not be able to endure, and you would not be able to come out successfully from all those kind of trials. So sometimes sometimes you will have this fear, sometimes you will have hunger, sometimes you will think that you are losing your own assets, your own life, your own resources. Sometimes you will feel that you are in the midst of all those things. فَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ, that give glad tidings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave glad tidings only to Sabirin. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, not to Musallin, not to those who are Qareen of the Quran. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, those who have patience, who have perseverance, who understand, and who go back to the divine guidance and divine laws to understand how things need to be fixed and how things need to be improved. It is in this particular context that we could also refer to the last few verses that describes the struggle of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam against Jalut in the story of David and Goliath. That there were issues, there were problems, and Jalut was trying to intimidate, Jalut was trying to overcome because of his strength and because of his superior power. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala empowered Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam to overcome them. And how did he overcome? When Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam read, رَبَّنَا افْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us steadfast in the belief that we have. Give us the strength to have patience so that we do not panic and do not run out of the situation and face it bravely, in the belief that you would enable us to overcome those kind of things, and then you would, and then as a result of that determination, he overcame that. So that is the second thing that we need to. The first is وَلِكُلِّ وِجْهَةٌ هُوَ مُوَلِّيهَا, and the second one is that we will face difficulties, we will face challenges in meeting our goals. We should be prepared. And how should we be prepared? That we should go back to the divine guidance and divine laws. And when we are talking of divine guidance and divine laws, we must understand that the divine guidance is spread all over the world. It is not only what is written in the Quran, it is also what is present in the physical universe of the world. Everything that this physical universe has is based on certain laws. Some of it we know, some of it we do not. We discovered that. So that there is a balance in this physical universe. And it is that balance that we have to try to achieve in our own lives. The third issue is the issue that often has created a lot of issues over centuries within the Muslim community, and it is the issue of the status of men and women. Because there is a verse which has been used by the Muslim men in general and scholars in particular to prove the superiority of men over women. And I want you to listen to that very carefully. There's a verse which says, that is on chapter 2, verse 228, which also says, وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ, that the men have a degree over women. And this is how it has been translated, that men have a superior status over women. Men are a degree above women. Let us look at this entire verse. This verse is in relation to divorce. It is not in relation to anything else. It is in relation to divorce. And in this particular context, in a society that is tribal, it is a society that basically believed in traditional way of living. The Quran is saying that when the divorce takes place, a woman should wait for 3 months to get married again. Why? For obvious reason, to determine that she is not pregnant and she's not carrying the child of the previous husband, the one who has divorced or the one from whom she has sought the divorce. This is a condition for women that the Quran is saying in those circumstances, in those situations. Men are exempt from that one. But the men is said that, well, you don't have to prove your paternity and you don't have to go through this kind of process that women go through. So you are exempt from that and you can marry. It is in this particular context, this verse is saying, وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَةٌ. They are in different league. Not that they have a degree above them. Not that they have a superior status over them. Because how is it possible that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he is saying that I am the creator of all, then he would make someone superior over others on the basis of their birth or on the basis of their physical structures? The roles would be different. The responsibilities may be different. The physical characteristics may be different, but that does not give the notion of superiority and notion of betterment of one over the other. So that issue needs to be understood. That anyone who talks about وَلِلرِّجَالِ عَلَيْهِنَّ دَرَجَاتٌ, who says that it is a verse that proves that men are superior, they should go back to the Quran and they should read it and they should revise their understanding of the divine guidance, because what they have been saying and they have been doing totally contradicts the Quranic essence and the Quranic message. And that's what we have been doing for the last several years, centuries, unfortunately. This is what women have been made to believe. This is what men have been believing. And this is how, basically, based on these two assumptions, we are conducting our relationship with each other. We are conducting our relationship on that kind of basis. So that is the third point that I mentioned. The fourth one is also very important. And the fourth one refers to what we call the will or the written will. Quran is very specific about it. And it says, كَتَبَ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذَا حَضَرَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ أَنْ تَرَكَ خَيْرَ الْوَصِيَّةِ لِلْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ الْمَعْرُوفُ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. That this is a law for those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This has been decreed upon those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when they feel that it is time for them to leave this world, they should write down their will. That ensures that the rights of their parents, rights of their relatives, and rights of their kith and kin are preserved. That the will has to be written. And in this particular respect, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes to the extent of saying, فَمَنْ بَدَّلَهُ. بعد ما سمعوا وإنما إثمهم على الذين يبدلونه. That if anyone changes that law, if anyone changes that written wasiyah, and he is committing a sin, he is defying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many of our scholars have been saying that, Quran specifies certain percentage to certain members of the family, 1/2 to the sons and 1/3 to daughters and 1/6 and 1/8 to the mothers and the wives, and all those kind of divisions that of course are mentioned in the Quran, that it is, if the wasiyat does not refer to those things, that it would be considered invalid. And even if the wasiyat is not written, this is how it would be distributed. One must understand that we have no right, no one, not even the Prophet has a right to veto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No scholar can veto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one can say that this particular commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been nullified, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself nullifies that particular verse. And yesterday we read that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not nullify anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have a single verse in the Quran that said that I am nullifying this particular verse with this particular verse. Nowhere does it say. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that yes, the previous generations, the previous religious communities changed the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, changed the directions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message. And now with the coming of the Quran, all those changes that were introduced by others are being corrected, and basically what you consider as things that have been forgotten by people, what you think is being changed is basically going back to the original. So there's no such thing that this particular rulings on the what you call the distribution of the resources of the deceased person nullify the writing of will. A will can be written by people, it must be written, and must have witnesses. The Quran is very specific about it. And then the Quran also says that the will can basically overrule the divisions and the distribution that has been mentioned in the Quran. Those kind of distribution will come into effect only when the will is not written. At that particular time, to avoid the kind of dispute and conflict, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that follow this particular formula. And this makes sense because as long as I'm alive, I do not distribute my resources on the basis of that division that would come after my death. Sometimes I spend more money on my wife, or my daughter, my children, which may not necessarily be equal, depending on the conditions and situations. If my son is in a good position and earning enough money, and my daughter is not making enough money and she needs some kind of money, then it's quite possible that in my lifetime I could give her more than what I would give to my son. And the Quran perfectly gives this kind of permission to me. And it is in this particular context that the wasiyah is valid and has to be followed within that particular context. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, the fifth thing, that he warns the Muslims within the context of a universal law and universal rule, which says, Lahum nasibum mimma kasabu. Everyone will reap what it will sow. That this is the law. This is the law of the universe. This is the law that is applicable upon every human being, that we will reap what we will sow. And in that particular respect, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that وَلَا تَلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّحْلُكَ وَأَحْسِنُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. That do not hurt yourself and do not kill yourself with your own hands. And do not put yourself in a state of danger. That when dangers are there, you should not basically challenge those dangers. And unfortunately, during this coronavirus crisis, we see many of the religious communities are challenging that law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only Muslims, but Jews, the Christians, the Hindus, they are flocking and coming in large assemblies and large gathering, despite the fact that those who are called Ahlul Zikr and those who are called Ulil Albab are telling the social distancing is important to contain this virus. And yet they are insisting that they would go to the masajid, they would go to the churches, they would go to the synagogues, they would go to temples, hugging and shaking hands with each other, and who knows who is carrying what and what. And this is what Quran talks about, IBIDikum tahlika, that you are killing, you are hurting yourself with your own hands. Nasimum mimma kasabtum. And then you will reap the consequences of what you are facing. So what happened? What happened is that in the communities in the United States, where a certain segment of the Jewish community refused to follow those kind of guidelines, they're witnessing the high number of contamination and infection. The same is the case in Pakistan, the same is the case in India, same is the case in Indonesia, and same is the case in Italy, and same is the case in other places where those kind of gatherings have taken place. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message is very practical in that particular sense. Now, lastly, I would also mention one particular verse, and then we would, stop it here. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also clarifying the myth and demolishing the myth that the various religious communities, until the advent of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had assumed and had adopted, contrary to the divine guidance that was given to their messengers. The idea was that each religious community has its own God. And some religious communities believe that each aspect of life is controlled by one God. Some people have the idea of two gods. Some people have the idea of hundreds of gods. Some people had the idea of a God in partnership with, his son, on all those kind of things. And some people were saying that, some people were the direct descendant of that God, and some people were directly created by God, and some people emerged and were born out of accident, and all those kind of ideas were prevalent. Quran demolished that. And Quran in verse 213 says, كان الناس أمة واحدة فبعث الله النبيين ومبشرين ومنذرين وأنزل معهم الكتاب بالحق ليحكم بين الناس فيما اختلفوا فيه. Humanity has always been one, because the Creator is one. And whenever the Creator realized that the people have been going wrong and astray, he sent messengers who kept on reminding people of the good things that they would achieve as a result of their relationship with the divine guidance, who kept on warning them and making analysis of the conditions around them, and warning them of the dire consequences of their actions. And the purpose of all these messages was to ensure that that unity of humanity is maintained. How is that maintained? When human beings believe in certain truths that are universal and that are self-evident. Who would give those truths? Those truths will be given through the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the message that the prophets would become, and through the exploration of the universe that would lead us to the discovery of the truth and the physical truth that exists in this universe. It was that simple. كان الناس أمة واحدة. But we kept on dividing and creating conflicts. And it is in this particular context, Quran places special responsibilities upon Muslims and upon the believers. وَتُصْلِحُ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. It doesn't say بَيْنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. It says تُصْلِحُ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Your responsibility is to make sure that you become a messenger of peace, a messenger of mending relationship among people. But when we ourselves project our own community as a party, as you know, uh, someone opposed to others, not on the basis of ideas, but on the basis of ethnicity and culture and politics and all of that kind of thing, how can we play that particular role? And it is this message that the Quran is giving us, that we have to uh, do those kind of things. And finally, the Quran also responds to the the query of the people. They ask, what should we spend? Where should we spend? And the response of the Quran is, take care of your parents first. Take care of your parents. Quran's responsibility is that you should also take care of your relatives. Quran also then gives this hierarchy: parents, relatives, orphans, and those people who are destitute, and those people who are wabna sabil. Wabna sabil usually was translated in the past as travelers, but it is now applicable to the refugees, those people who have been displaced, those people who have been kicked out of their own homes. That is the responsibility. First, take care of the parents. Not anything at the expense of your parents, not anything at the expense of your relatives, not anything at the expense of the orphans. And then once you have taken care of all those things, then the refugees, and once all these categories have been fulfilled, then you can devote your resources to other causes as well. So the Quran is giving in this particular chapter, in this particular part, a comprehensive understanding of the role of Muslims. In conclusion, our responsibility is to outpace others in things that are good. Our responsibility is to ensure that this goodness starts from our own families, with our own parents. Our responsibility is that we treat humanity as one. Our responsibility is that we do not create that kind of false notions that we have created for centuries, that some people are superior to others on the basis of their gender. Our responsibility is not that we basically give up in times of difficulties and in times of panic. Our responsibility is not that we do not make our rightful decision in terms of writing our will. And our responsibility is to make sure that we keep persevering and planning and strategizing things so that we could overcome the difficulties that we uh, come across. And we conclude this discussion on this second juz of the Quran with the recitation of the dua that Prophet Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam made when he was confronting Goliath or Jalut. رَبَّنَا افْرِغْ عَلَيْنَا صَبْرًا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are forces that are trying to hurt us, that are trying to deny the truth. Establish us on faith. Make ourselves stand firm on truth, and give us this endurance so that we could face the opposition without panicking and without succumbing to it. And then the victory, as you have must well come. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. Inshallah, we can have the questions and answers for the next 10 minutes, and then we will make the dua and then conclude it.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Aslam Abdullah. I do want to encourage everyone, please do take opportunity of posting in the comment section your questions, talking into a camera, not getting any physical feedback can be challenging at times, and getting your questions would enhance this session basically. So we have one question. This is Dr. Aslam from I think from
Yes.
yesterday, and it from Sister Lubna. Says, generally most scholars say that only Muslims will be rewarded Jannah, and only the Christians and Jews and Sabaeans prior to Islam will be rewarded with Jannah, and the ones after the advent of Islam, and not the ones after the advent of Islam. The ayah states, those who have attained faith as well as those who follow the Jews and so on, I guess. Does the faith specify Muslim faith? And does it mean that as long as they accept Prophet Muhammad, even if they do not convert, they can be rewarded?
Thank you very much for asking this question, because I am smiling because this afternoon I had a long discussion with one of the scholars in Northern California, whose insistence was that only Muslims will go to Jannah. And my simple question was, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever say that only Muslims will go to Jannah? That is the first question. The second question, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever communicate to anyone who claimed to be the agent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who claimed to be the spokesperson of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they can make this kind of judgment? On the contrary, we read in the Quran that we ourselves are not sure whether we would qualify for Jannah or not, even though we claim that we are believers. There is a hadith in the Bukhari, which is attributed to Abu Ayyub Ansari, that once Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that those who said La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah will go to Jannah. Immediately after this particular hadith, there is another hadith that is attributed to Hazrat Mahmud Ansari, no relation with Hazrat Ayyub Ansari, that says that anyone who says that simply reading this particular kalima one would qualify for Jannah is not true. So you have this contradiction there itself in that kind of thing. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that those who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who believe in the divine guidance and divine message and the universal truth, who do not impose their wrong ideas, superstitions upon others, who reject consciously. That's why the word that Quran uses for rejectors is kafirin. And the kafir is the one who deliberately tries to hide, even though he realizes this is the truth. That's why the farmer is also called a kafir, because he deliberately tries to cover the seed. And the grave is also is called kafir, in a state of kafir, that it is hiding and covering the things. So if a person who is consciously knowing the truth denies that truth, then he is a rebellion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless whether he's a Muslim or he's a non-Muslim. It doesn't matter. Islam is not a religion of labels. Islam is a religion of actions. And that's why Islam is not a noun, it is a verb. It becomes active when it is active. So this is one thing that we have said that none of us can say for surety. And the second thing is that usually when I'm asked this kind of question in interfaith dialogue, I say, I'm a salesperson, I'm not in the management. The management belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I would basically say what I've been asked to say in terms of his message and his guidance, but who he is going to put in Jannah, who is going to put in a state of extinction is up to him.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Aslam Abdullah. Well, that brings me to one of the verses that is mentioned in this juz that we just covered. Everyone has, this is Surah 2, Ayah 148. Everyone has a direction towards which he turns. So why with one another in good deeds? Whoever you, whosoever, wheresoever you are, God will bring you all together. Truly, God is powerful over all things. So I think this kind of ties into what you were just saying, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave a specific direction to different nations. But he's saying that compete with one another in good deeds. Basically, it doesn't kind of guarantee
Indeed, you are absolutely right. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that don't get involved in conflicts. Mm-hmm. Cooperate. And if you find that the other people are not cooperating, then do things that are basically that would make them realize what the worth of good is. And that is what collective responsibility of the Muslims is.
Right. Okay. If you can shed some light on another verse that's part of Surah, the second juz, Surah 259. As for those who hide the proofs and guidance we send down after we have made them clear to people in the scripture, God rejects them and so do others.
Okay, the word that is used here is la'natullah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and usually to say that Allah is rejecting them, Allah is cursing them. What in fact is happening, they are rejecting Allah. They are rejecting the truth. If someone says that the sun does not come out, what is there is a huge light bulb that was invented by Edison. So he is rejecting the truth. He is rejecting a fact. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, that those people who are rejecting the truth, who are rejecting the haqq, indeed are the ones who are making a mockery of themselves and who are exposing themselves. So when they are rejecting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them that permission and that right to reject him. I mean, Allah is not imposing his will upon them. He, even though he is in a position to impose everything upon everyone, if he wants, he can turn each one of us into the most obedient believer that one can ever think of. He could eradicate evil once for all. But he has given us this choice. And this choice is available to those people who reject the faith of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this particular verse is in fact giving the freedom to individuals and saying that, but Allah is warning them that if they use this freedom in an abusive manner, they would hurt themselves. And that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is the consequences that we will face. As I mentioned that verse, that those people who basically they reap what they sow.
Okay, excellent. Well, I guess we're coming up to 10 p.m. and I'm sure people would want to continue with their nightly prayers at home and reflect on their own. I'd just like to encourage everyone, please take this opportunity to read the daily juzzes that Dr. Aslam is covering. And once again, just to kind of make sure you know how to reach the Quran search that I had previously mentioned, if you go to the main page of Islamic City, just click on Quran search, and you can either do a search in any search engine, Quran search, you will come to this search engine, and here you will have access to all of the juzzes available to you. So you can just click on the juz and you can read the ayahs. This search engine is a smart search engine where you can search verses in the Quran by phonetics. So just for example, if I wanted to search where the verse Qul huwallahu ahad is, I may type it in as QUL, someone else may type it as KHUL, someone else may type it as KUL, Qul, and the engine is smart enough to figure out what are you trying to search, and it will search that Quranic ayah for you based on phonetics. So this is when you don't know how to type Arabic, you don't have an Arabic keyboard, and so on. That is a very powerful search engine aspect that we have. The second thing that the search engine can do, I can search for verses that I have a vague idea of a verse that is in the Quran. So for example, I seem to remember there's a verse in the Quran that says, Allah made, let me just, Allah made life from water. So I seem to remember there's a verse like that. I can search exactly like I just typed it in. It'll search the Quran and give you all of those verses which have that theme and that concept. So it has a very smart algorithm built into it where it can figure out what you're trying to search. So as you are reading the Quran, you can kind of expand your questions on other subjects and kind of see what the Quran is saying about different topics, and search the Quran in a way that makes it very accessible to people. So inshallah, we will be connecting again tomorrow at 9:15 p.m. And we'll have Dr. Aslam again with us
Thank
tomorrow.
you. Let's
Inshallah,
make the dua.
Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Aslam.
بسم الله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to help us walk the path of haqq and the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fill our hearts with love, and if we have made mistakes and we have done wrong, forgive us for that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make the blessings of this month, particular month, apparent to all of us, and make us worthy of that blessing that you have promised to all those people who walk on your path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, help the humanity to come with the cure of this disease, and help those people who are suffering and who are in need of the help. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Aslam. Assalamu alaikum.